Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has called on the public to pay more attention to legislative reforms. It follows the passing of a controversial reform bill that would give the legislature more power to investigate government officials and private citizens. Rick Glauert reports on how the changes have split Taiwan society.
Cheers of support and shouts of protests in Taiwan's legislature as it passes contentious reforms giving Parliament more power. Bills that have caused weeks of violence here in the legislature and mass protests on the streets of Taiwan.
We wanted to rebalance the powers of the executive and legislature, and so we can refine our democracy.
The reforms, once signed into law by the president, would give lawmakers the power to compel information from officials and citizens, criminalise contempt of parliament for officials, and require the president to report to the legislature and answer questions. Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party says it is an overreach of power. They accuse the opposition parties of not following due process in the parliament and say they are making Taiwan vulnerable to Chinese infiltration.
你们把国会没收了，把民主没收了，接下去当然是台湾香港化。
The DPP, which won the presidency in January elections but lost control of the legislature, has promised to reject the changes and take them to the Constitutional Court. The high political drama has split society, with tens of thousands taking to the streets around Parliament.
它并没有完全的实践民主价值。如果以后都可以用这样的方式来通过法案的话，我可能真的会对台湾的民主越来越没有信心。
Taiwan prides itself in its democracy and says these values are what makes the country different from autocratic China across the strait. These contested reforms have exacerbated deep schisms in the legislature and in public opinion. And for Taiwan's new president, Lai Ching-te, who's now just 10 days into the role, it's a bitter taste of the challenges to come in the next 4 years. Kris and Rick Glauert for TaiwanPlus.
Let's get more now from Rick Glauert, who is reporting for us in Taipei. Rick, in the lead up to all this, we saw some extraordinary scenes unfold inside the legislature and, of course, those huge protests on the streets. Obviously, it's hugely divisive issue, so what happens now?
It's the calm after the storm. The lawmakers have left that main chamber in Taiwan's legislature and they've taken their flags, their banners, their balloons, their paper aeroplanes with them. The protesters have also left the streets around Taiwan's parliament. Those roads are now reopened. But the deep political divisions remain. It's just that the battlegrounds are changing. Taiwan's cabinet says it's going to send this controversial bill back to the parliament for more discussion. The main ruling party, the Democratic Progressive Party, the DPP, says it's going to take it to the Constitutional Court. And the main opposition party, the Kuomintang or the KMT, is emboldened, and they said they're going to go on an anti-corruption drive. They're going to go after the DPP on various issues, various scandals that have come up in the last couple of years. So what about the protests? Well, they reached a crescendo last night. Organisers there urging people not to give up the fight, to go back to their communities, to regroup, to put pressure on local politicians. And there is, of course, still the chance that these could escalate. The protests have been very peaceful so far, but in the past, movements like this have ended in the storming and the occupation of Taiwan's legislature. So it's been a winning of a battle for Taiwan's main opposition parties, but the political war looks set to continue.